Thomas and Catherine Naylor sold part of their donation land claim to Pacific University in 1855 for $1, and the area was later included in the city limits around 1872. Pacific University made money from selling lots in this and other nearby blocks. The property went through a number of owners before Minnie Baker purchased the land from Louis and Rose CORL in August 1910. The CORLs lived a block away on A Street and had owned the property since early 1909, which they bought from Jane M. Smith for $10, the low price possibly due to it being delinquent in taxes. Though still speculative, it's possible the CORLs had the house built during their ownership, as the sale price to Minnie Baker was relatively large sum of $2,400. That said, the house has been long known as the Minnie Baker or Minnie Baker Crowther House, so to avoid confusion, we continue to refer to it as such. It seems certain that she was the first person to live in the house. When Minnie Baker purchased the property, her husband Edward Baker had just passed away. We assume she lived here with her 4 children for at least 2 years. In 1912, Minnie married William Crowther of Gales Creek, and she seems to have spent most of her time living in that small town with her new husband and several of her children. When she's mentioned as being in the Grove during this time period, Minnie is often visiting her mother and sisters who lived on Pacific Avenue at Cedar Street. Minnie likely rented out the home to a number of families over the decade. Current owners, the Harveys, have found paper documents in the walls of the home specifying the names of possible boarders and renters. The Crowthers ultimately sold the property in May 1920 to Walker Benjamin, who in turn sold it to Carmel M. Good. Good lived elsewhere and had an investment company. Seems to have leased or sold the home to Theodore and Hazel Radke, who lived here from 1921 to around 1925. Theodore Radke was from Webb, Saskatchewan, Canada. The sale may not have been finalized, as Carmel Good later sells the home to his sister, Leah May, and her husband, James Elmer May, around 1925. Elmer May was a railroad engineer, and their son Eldon lived here for most of his high school years. The May family lived in the house until the 1930s before moving to 3rd Avenue in Old Town. The house address is not listed in the 1939 city directory, but by the end of the year, the Mays had rented the house to Marlin and Hester Engel, who lived in the house in the 1940 census. Marlin was a saw filer in a lumber yard in Columbia County. Their 2 daughters, Colleen and Dolores, they rented the house for $18 a month.
Wow.
The Mays owned the home until 1946. It's not certain how possession passed from the Mays to the Jesse family, but a deed transfer from that year has the house being sold by Ludwig and Otley Jesse to Maurice Budd and Mary Walsh for $10. Again, possibly delinquent taxes. The Walsh family lived here for 30 years, then sold the house to their son Jake. Jake and his high school sweetheart Jewel married and lived here many years. Jake recalls as a kid the chickens in the backyard and his sister sleeping in the alcove, which you guys told me, of the top of the stairs. Jake visited the current owners and Robert and Katie and told them about his memories and how he would have bought the house if he had known it was for sale. Before the Harveys moved in the preceding residence, Heather Belt and Chris Paulus remodeled the upstairs bathroom and added closets and raised the ceiling upstairs, among other fixes. From the moment they moved in, the Harveys started working on renovating the house, and they saved as much of the details and molding as possible when restoring the kitchen and redid the walls. While opening up the walls, they found numerous artifacts, including a powder horn and dozens of paper receipts and letters, evidence that Minnie Baker had rented the house around 1912 to George and Rose Burke. Next, the Harveys rebuilt the garage, which had been a lean-to pole building. They restored the woodshed attachment, which is now a laundry room. The Harveys seemed driven to preserve as much of the features as possible while making the house last for years to come. They have invested great time and energy in restoring much of the house's integrity and should be commended for the care they've taken. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.